We're about to watch $84 trillion move from baby boomers to their millennial children. Estimates vary, and we'll unpack why that matters. That's more than the GDP of most countries combined. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The Vanderbilt family lost the world's largest fortune in just 70 years through lavish spending and poor investments. So what does this mean for millennials stepping into sudden wealth? And how can they avoid the estate mistakes, tax traps, and 3 critical preservation rules that determine whether inherited money lasts or vanishes? But first, let's understand exactly how much money we're actually talking about. The biggest money movement in human history. Estimates vary on the exact figure. An oft-quoted number is $84 trillion, but later restatements put the total closer to $100 to $124 trillion once you adjust for inflation and recent asset gains. We'll use $84 trillion as a conservative benchmark for the U.S. transfer while noting the larger updated estimates. It's bigger than many national economies combined. This isn't just stacks of cash. It's homes, stocks, bonds, retirement accounts, art collections, farmland, and companies both small and enormous wrapped into that staggering figure. So what does it look like when the money actually begins to move? At peak, analysts project multiple trillions per year flowing across generations. Crude estimates put the annualized transfer in the multi-trillion range, underscoring the scale without pretending exact unanimity among experts. That's enough to fund every public school, every hospital system, and still have change left over. This isn't abstract. These are checks being written, properties changing titles, portfolios shifting names. And yet, calling it just an inheritance doesn't capture everything that's happening. When economists describe it, they include lifetime transfers like gifts, as well as the businesses that parents hand down to children. A modest diner in Ohio counts in this figure, right alongside multinational corporations. Then there's real estate, the single biggest component of generational wealth in most families. A home that a parent bought 40 years ago for $80,000 might now be valued closer to $1 million depending on the city. That increase doesn't just make housing less affordable for outsiders. It inflates the eventual inheritance for those who grew up in it. But here's where the story turns. Data shows the biggest chunk flows to a narrow slice. Roughly half the transfer goes to the very top of the recipient list, so the headline trillions are highly concentrated. That means while the number makes it sound like every millennial will wake up in 2025 with a golden ticket under their pillow, the wealth is concentrated enough that this lottery pays out spectacularly for some, and not at all for others. Take surveys of millennials who expect inheritance. A surprising percentage believe their parents or grandparents will leave them sums large enough to change their lives. The reality is sobering. Many do receive something, but often not in the hundreds of thousands they've been mentally penciling into their future plans. For most families, inheritances cover funeral costs, pay off lingering debts, maybe leave a cushion for emergencies. For others, particularly those who grew up in high-cost real estate markets, the transfer is more substantial, sometimes life-changing. But this is the exception, not the rule. The contradiction is striking. On a spreadsheet, millennials are positioned to become the wealthiest generation in history, inching past baby boomers as the heirs apparent. But spreadsheets hide distribution. The vast majority of the seats at the table are small chairs, while a handful resemble royal thrones. The average millennial inheritor, dividing across all who do receive, might take home around $400,000. That's enough to wipe out student debts, buy a house in a mid-range market, or reinvest for lasting growth. But averages smooth out uncomfortable truths. Nearly half of Americans will receive little to nothing at all, so while one sibling might be checking Zillow, another is learning they'll never see more than a few thousand. This mismatch between expectation and reality shapes behavior before the money even arrives. A surprising number of households make assumptions about future inheritances when planning careers, buying homes, or saving for retirement. If someone believes a windfall is waiting in their late 30s or 40s, they might justify living beyond their current means, thinking that someday safety net will catch them. But for half the country, that net doesn't appear, or arrives as a thread instead of a rope, pushing those expectations off a cliff. And even for those who do receive substantial inheritances, the arrival often creates just as many problems as it solves. One reason the windfalls are concentrated. Asset growth over the last 5 decades has tilted toward those who already owned. Property booms lifted homeowners to new heights. Stock market surges multiplied wealth for families that already had investments. Meanwhile, wages for most workers in service or entry-level jobs stagnated, leaving them with little more to pass down than sentimental items, not financial ones. Millennials therefore inherit not only a sum of wealth, but also the inequality built into the system that created it. If you track the numbers forward, economists project that baby boomers alone will eventually pass along about 70% of this transfer, because they are both the largest generational group and the richest in history. Gen X contributes the next chunk, but because they are smaller and in their peak earning years now, far less of their total net worth is set to move by 2025. This means millennials aren't just catching up by chance. The timing of their parents' retirements and life expectancies align almost perfectly with the start of their prime adult years. It is unusual in history for so much accumulated wealth to be set into motion in a single generation's window. For all the drama of trillion-dollar transfers, remember that this wealth doesn't show up as duffel bags of cash delivered to front doors. More often, it arrives through probate courts, legal documents, and asset managers who distribute stocks, bonds, and property gradually. A landlord inherits an apartment complex and suddenly becomes both owner and operator. A sibling inherits farmland in Kansas and has to decide between leasing it, selling it, or learning how to grow corn. A designer inherits shares of a company their parent owned stock in, and they must now choose to hold or sell. Money rarely arrives in its simplest spendable form. It shows up with obligations, legal costs, and sometimes long waiting periods. Still, for those who are on the receiving end of the larger checks, 2025 could mean life changes that were unimaginable a decade ago. For years, millennials were caricatured as the generation priced out of starter homes, mocked for affording only small luxuries like avocado toast or lattes. The coming wave means that, at least for a portion of them, both the latte and the house down payment can coexist in the same budget. Yes, you may soon afford the avocado toast and the mortgage, even if the mortgage costs more than an entire Victorian home did in your grandparents' day. And this is where the story gets interesting. Because the wealth is shifting, but not evenly, millennials as a group might soon be labeled the richest generation ever. But individually, most of them will still need to make hard financial choices. That divide between generation-level statistics and household-level reality is what makes this wealth transfer both historic and misleading at the same time. But even for those who do receive substantial amounts, history suggests that massive inheritances don't guarantee lasting wealth. Why old money keeps disappearing. The pattern repeats across centuries with unsettling consistency. The Vanderbilt fortune, once the largest private wealth in the world, vanished completely within 70 years through lavish spending and poor investments. British aristocrats who controlled entire counties lost their ancestral estates when they failed to adapt to changing economics. A widely cited rule of thumb, often repeated, though debated, suggests that about 70% of wealthy families lose their fortunes by the second generation and up to 90% by the third generation. This statistic comes from the Williams Group and has critics, but the underlying pattern appears across cultures and eras. The causes fall into three research-backed categories that destroy family wealth with remarkable efficiency. First, lifestyle inflation and unmanaged spending drain capital faster than most heirs realize, as successive generations assume expensive lifestyles are sustainable without the income streams that originally funded them. Second, lack of diversification and failure to maintain hard asset buffers leave inheritances vulnerable when single investments or industries decline. Third, family governance failures create squabbles and legal costs that can consume years of attorney fees while forcing asset sales at discount prices to settle disputes between siblings. These aren't mysterious forces, they're predictable management failures. Estate after estate in 19th century Britain collapsed when aristocratic families refused to diversify beyond agriculture as farming modernized. The Vanderbilt descendants held family reunions in rented spaces by the mid-20th century because no unified strategy existed between heirs. Modern celebrity inheritances follow similar patterns, with trust fund recipients making headlines for extravagant purchases rather than building lasting wealth. Research across wealthy households confirms what the anecdotes suggest. Roughly 7 in 10 wealthy families lose their wealth by the second generation, and 9 in 10 have little left by the third. These aren't isolated failures. They reflect structures almost designed to collapse without deliberate rebuilding at each stage. A fortune built through decades of entrepreneurship can start deteriorating with just a handful of careless years. The solution lies in treating inherited wealth like the enterprise it needs to become. Family offices, private firms that manage ultra-wealthy households, employ strategists who oversee investments, legal structures, and education for younger generations. By creating institutional frameworks around wealth, they dramatically increase survival rates. Families without such structures often rely on individual judgment, which proves erratic depending on who inherits. 2 estate preservation steps can make the difference between legacy and loss. First, set up multi-generational governance through family offices or, at minimum, structured trusts with professional oversight before money arrives. Second, ensure financial education for all potential heirs, since wealth management skills don't transfer automatically with assets. Many wealthy families lack even basic wills, making immediate action critical. The Vanderbilt curse wasn't mysterious, it was risk management ignored. Fortunes vanish not because money has expiration dates, but because the systems protecting them fail. Without budgets, investment strategies, and long-term planning, inherited wealth becomes unmanaged capital drifting toward predictable collapse. For millennials expecting substantial inheritances, these patterns carry practical urgency. The opportunity to pay off debts or buy property is obvious, but the sharper choice involves long-term management of whatever arrives. Turning inheritance into lasting foundation requires deliberate structure, professional advice, and honest recognition that wealth needs constant replenishment to survive. Without awareness and planning, substantial inheritances will appear and quietly vanish, leaving future generations wondering where the fortune went. Wealth is lost not because time erases it, but because families let it drift without discipline. The difference between becoming a cautionary tale and building lasting prosperity often comes down to whether heirs treat their inheritance as a windfall or as a business requiring management. Yet even as these inheritance patterns play out, the biggest question remains unanswered. If so many great fortunes disappear within generations, where does the real wealth actually come from? Who actually gets rich, the inheritors versus the builders? The answer lies in examining who actually controls the largest fortunes today. When people picture the richest individuals alive, it is easy to assume most of them were simply born into it. The truth is more nuanced. At the very top, many recent additions are self-made entrepreneurs. But inheritance still produces concentrated fortunes, and a meaningful portion of billionaire wealth comes from family dynasties. Today, billionaires can roughly be divided into 2 categories: those who inherited fortunes managed by older generations, and those who built new wealth themselves. If you line up the actual billionaires at the very top of the list, a pattern emerges. Many are still individuals who built businesses rather than people who inherited companies already made for them. But storied family names maintain significant positions through generational wealth. This matters because it reveals how wealth behaves differently at extreme levels. Inheritances may create wealthy individuals, even billionaires, but those fortunes tend to cluster among family groups already entrenched as global dynasties. The Waltons, heirs to Walmart, are one example. Multiple family members each appear near the top of global wealth rankings. The same applies to families tied to luxury conglomerates like Hermes and L'Oreal. Their names keep circulating not because they built something new, but because they inherited positions controlling companies that had already dominated markets for decades. Looking at 2025 billionaire data, the entrepreneurial pattern becomes clearer. Every year, new billionaires are added to the global list. Some join through inheritances of sprawling estates, corporate shares, or old industrial fortunes. Yet many became billionaires through companies they built from the ground up. Industry breakdowns show finance and technology produce the most billionaires, underscoring that building still creates extreme wealth. In the past 2 decades, a large portion of new entrants reached billionaire status through tech platforms, renewable energy firms, biotechnology, and financial services. These industries move at a pace and scale that rewards original building more than passive inheriting. The divide creates tension in how we understand wealth. Inheritance has the unique ability to create sudden billionaires without any effort from their side. Someone can wake up after a significant transfer and find their name added to rich lists purely because of family ties. Self-made billionaires, on the other hand, represent the continued influence of entrepreneurship. They endure unpredictable risks, competition, and cycles of innovation. but they also have greater influence on where global markets move next. Their fortunes often reflect industries reshaping daily life. There is also an important difference in how long each type of fortune tends to last. Inherited billionaire wealth often becomes divided between siblings, cousins, or extended family over time. What begins as one massive empire can fracture within a few decades. By contrast, self-made billionaires often retain singular control over their company's stake, consolidating enormous influence in one person. That control makes them responsible for both the creation and preservation of their wealth. This distinction becomes critical for millennials looking at the future. As a generation, they may hold trillions more in aggregate wealth than their parents. Some will inherit substantial positions in family companies, real estate, or stock portfolios. A few will move directly into the billionaire class from inherited stakes alone. Yet many of the millennial billionaires we see emerging are shaping their own paths as builders, not as heirs. Growing industries like artificial intelligence, climate technology, and blockchain platforms are producing fortunes faster than inheritance can distribute them. This reality provides an important corrective to the narrative that inheritance alone explains the billionaire landscape. While significant dynasties exist, fresh entrepreneurs continue to take many slots at the top level. In 2025 reports, the ratio still favors builders over pure inheritors. That tells us something about the way wealth functions today. Access to global capital, technology markets, and new business models disproportionately rewards individuals who create companies that scale worldwide. Another way to see this difference is by examining patterns of new wealth creation by year. In any given year, dozens of individuals rise into billionaire status. The total number of new billionaires added through inheritance fluctuates with the timing of transfers, families selling stakes after a death, or legal structures dissolving. But the steadier, larger stream comes from entrepreneurs who pushed companies forward in the global market. This trend has held across industries that define recent decades, from social media to e-commerce to pharmaceuticals. For millennials eager to understand where they stand, the distinction is clear. Inheritance creates security. Entrepreneurship creates new leaders and often drives the next generation of top fortunes. Generational wealth transfer provides opportunities for comfort, for new houses, and in some cases for business ownership. It may even ensure that certain family names remain connected to global wealth indices for decades more. But the record shows that if the goal is not just affluence but entry into the highest tiers of global wealth, building matters more than inheriting. If your goal is to build extreme wealth rather than preserve inherited capital, entrepreneurship and active investment strategy are the primary routes. Those who inherit risk becoming stewards of fortunes they did not create, with the responsibility to manage without expansion. Those who build place themselves at the center of emerging industries and gain the chance to control how their wealth grows. The $84 trillion transfer will raise aggregate wealth levels for the generation, but the road to billionaire status runs through building, not simply receiving. Yet for most millennials, the inheritance question isn't about joining billionaire ranks. It's about more practical windfalls that arrive in forms they might not expect. The housing jackpot, when mom's house becomes a mansion. The most common windfall arrives not as stock certificates or cash, but as house keys. A small brick house purchased for a few $1,000s in the 1970s can today be valued in the millions if it happens to sit in the right zip code. That simple fact explains why the real estate market plays such an outsized role in the $84 trillion wealth transfer. Boomers own a disproportionate share of housing. For example, in the US they control roughly 37% of the housing stock, which is why real estate is such a big part of transfers. Cities like San Francisco make this story obvious. In the mid-20th century, middle-income workers could buy homes there at prices that were reasonable for salaries of teachers, shopkeepers, or small business owners. The same houses are now valued at several $1 million, even before renovations or improvements are factored in. These inflated values mean that the children inheriting them become instant paper millionaires, even if that paper wealth doesn't translate into spendable cash. The rise in housing values adds a twist to generational wealth that differs from traditional inheritances. Cash and investment portfolios are relatively straightforward to divide and spend. Real estate is not. A house cannot easily be split among siblings, so property often forces difficult decisions. Should it be sold so the value can be divided? Should one child keep it and buy out the others? Property also comes with upkeep. Roofs need replacing, plumbing systems age, heating and cooling systems wear out. These aren't glamorous problems, but they arrive alongside the asset. Houses are liquid assets that come with ongoing taxes and maintenance costs that many heirs underestimate. Probate disputes are rising in places like the UK as families struggle over property decisions, and legal fights can drag on for years. Before assuming an inherited property equals spendable cash, heirs need to calculate taxes, maintenance costs, and liquidity needs. What looks like a pristine benefit from the outside often arrives with complications inside the financial paperwork. Because real estate is so significant in the $84 trillion figure, it is important to see how much of this wealth is locked up rather than ready to spend. An art collection or equities portfolio can be sold quickly if immediate funds are needed. A 3-bedroom house in Brooklyn cannot. Market conditions can also slow sales or drop values at inconvenient times. Thus, wealth on real estate balance sheets may inflate inheritance totals nationally, but at the individual level it creates both opportunity and challenge. The impact is unequal depending on geography. Families in cities with runaway price growth hold inheritances that may surprise even them. Those in stagnant or rural markets do not see the same bump. A family home in Detroit, for example, may not generate nearly the same return as one in San Jose, even if both represent decades of pride and stability for their owners. This unevenness reinforces the already sharp differences in intergenerational transfers. Consider again how one average house could account for multiple lifetimes of salary. A home purchased for $50,000 in 1972 may now be appraised at $1.5 million. That increase alone represents 30 times its initial value and creates a fortune even for families who never viewed themselves as wealthy. Inheritance in those cases is the direct result of inflation and real estate booms, not strategic savings or investments. Yet the housing jackpot is complicated by debts attached to property. Mortgages not fully paid off must still be settled. Home equity loans that parents use to fund retirement or pay medical bills can reduce the net value of the asset passed on. These obligations transfer with the property if heirs want to keep it, or must be cleared during sales. If you inherit a house, decide early, rent, sell, or hold, and calculate taxes, maintenance, and liquidity needs first. Each choice comes with its own risks and expenses. None of it functions like cashing a lottery ticket, even if the numbers on paper appear dazzling. Millennials inheriting houses will often find themselves becoming accidental landlords or reluctant participants in real estate sales, not simply instant beneficiaries of sudden fortune. The maintenance obligations alone change the story. Heating systems, plumbing, roofs, foundations, all these demand money long before they generate any. Local laws sometimes require upgrades for energy efficiency or safety before a sale is approved, further eating into an expected windfall. These costs mean the so-called housing jackpot hands over a long to-do list alongside the title deed. Parents may gift down payments or funds now to avoid a complicated, taxed, a liquid transfer later. This giving while living trend allows families to bypass some of the complications that come with inherited real estate while providing immediate help when children need it most for their own home purchases. What follows is a reality check that every inheritor must face. When receiving the keys to a house, the gift also includes property taxes that recur yearly, repair bills that arrive without warning, and insurance that steadily rises with property value. Inheritances may look like million-dollar gains, but those same gains are offset by expenses most people never consider until they are living them. The story of inherited housing therefore reveals the limits of the wealthiest generation label. On paper, the numbers point to newfound affluence. In practice, houses passed down to heirs will often require immediate financial discipline and long-term planning. For millennials prepared to manage that responsibility, the transfer represents both financial security and opportunity. For those less prepared, it may feel more like inheriting an endless repair bill than claiming a golden prize. But even for those who navigate the complexities of inherited real estate successfully, another challenge awaits that. Many families never anticipate until it arrives with the paperwork. The taxman cometh. Estate taxes and administrative costs create the first major hurdle. When most people imagine receiving an inheritance, they picture a figure handed over cleanly, like a number already waiting in their bank account. But the reality involves multiple deductions that reduce net inheritance. Federal estate tax on very large estates, state estate or inheritance taxes where applicable, probate and estate administration fees, and debts and unpaid bills that must be settled first. In some large estates, combined federal and state estate taxes and probate costs can approach 30 to 40%, but most estates fall below federal exemption thresholds, so the actual tax bite varies widely. In the United States, federal estate tax applies only above high exemptions. Many estates pay nothing at the federal level. Recent laws set that exemption so high that only the wealthiest families face the steepest rates. That means the average family home or moderate savings account isn't subject to direct federal estate tax. Yet some states add their own estate or inheritance taxes on top of federal policies. In places where housing prices skyrocketed over decades, families may discover they slide into taxable categories purely due to property appreciation. The distinction between estate and inheritance taxes matters for planning. Estate taxes are paid by the estate before distribution, while inheritance taxes are paid by recipients after they receive assets. Cross-country rules differ significantly. Canada has no inheritance tax, but has deemed disposition rules that trigger capital gains at death, while other countries impose substantial rates above exemption thresholds. For families with assets or heirs in different countries, consult cross-border estate tax professionals to avoid potential double taxation traps. The bigger issue comes from the combination of taxes with administrative costs. Even when families fall beneath major exemption levels, estates are processed through court systems that require legal representation, accounting, and filing fees. These costs alone may consume a meaningful portion of the inheritance. Add in debts, mortgages still owed, credit lines used for later life expenses, medical bills, and the total whittled away before distribution can be substantial. Families expecting a straightforward handover often encounter months, or even years of probate before anything tangible reaches heirs. For example, a family with a home worth $1 million might discover that paying off remaining loans, covering probate attorneys, and addressing tax obligations reduces the final check to closer to $500,000. That is still life-changing money, but it is strikingly different from what heirs first assume when they hear the property's valuation. At the larger scale of multi-generational fortunes, the difference between gross value and net inheritance can span millions. Estate planning tools exist precisely to limit these losses. Trusts are one of the most common. By placing assets into a trust during life, parents can both set conditions for distribution and protect assets from certain taxes or creditors. Trusts vary in form: revocable, irrevocable, charitable, but each type allows greater control of how and when heirs receive funds. Another common strategy is gifting assets gradually while still alive. Tax codes in many countries allow annual gift exclusions up to a specific amount, which over decades lets parents transfer wealth in smaller increments without triggering larger estate taxes. Family-owned businesses present unique challenges, often requiring even more careful planning. Passing on company stock may create liquidity issues if heirs owe taxes based on valuation, but do not want to sell shares of the company. Families sometimes plan ahead by creating buy-sell agreements or designating insurance policies designed to cover potential liabilities. Without such planning, heirs can be forced to liquidate businesses simply to satisfy tax bills, undoing decades of growth. Then there are the less visible administrative drags. Executors, professional advisors, appraisers, all must be paid from the estate itself. Even honest professionals charge significant fees given the legal work required. The longer estates remain in court, the higher those fees climb. For complicated estates with disputes between siblings or cousins, legal battles can last years. Each year eats into the balance that eventually reaches heirs. To prevent such outcomes, estate conversations between generations are essential. Many parents avoid discussing finances with their children, hoping to spare discomfort. Yet silence breeds confusion, and confusion breeds cost. If heirs are unprepared for tax consequences, they may liquidate hastily, sell undervalued assets, or fail to take advantage of exemptions. Communication about intent, even if not precise dollar amounts, reduces the likelihood of sudden missteps. Consider the math at extremes. A $10 million estate located in a state that imposes its own taxes could face combined rates approaching 40% without careful planning. That converts to $4 million lost before heirs receive their share, not including debts or legal charges. Even average estates can lose significant percentages if handled without attention. These are not rare cases. They are common enough that professionals working in the field routinely warn families not to conflate gross estate value with inheritance value. For heirs expecting inheritances large enough to transform their finances, this reality demands preparation. Without institutional planning, trusts, gifts, insurance structures, the transfer process alone can feel like a second tax season stretched over years. Families that approach the estate as a business transition, not a lottery payout, tend to preserve much more. The surprising conclusion is that inheritance does not simply pour wealth into younger generations. It tests the structures built to defend that wealth from erosion. Without careful preparation, an inheritance becomes a number negotiated down by taxes, debts, court systems, and professionals who charge fees. With preparation, it has a chance to arrive almost intact. Yet even families who navigate these challenges successfully discover that the rules governing inheritance vary dramatically, depending on something most people never consider when planning their financial future.